It's time now for perspective. 3 days have now passed since the Egyptian brokered ceasefire between Israel and Hamas came into force, and it continues to hold. Palestinians in Gaza are using the newfound calm to clear up the devastation of 11 days of bombardment, while some in Israel have been able to head to the beach. But no one is under the illusion that the ceasefire signifies any real resolution to the entrenched conflict. My guest today is Joel Beinin, Professor of History and Middle East History at Stanford University. Thank you so much for being with us on France 24 today. Now, Israel in recent days has said it dealt Hamas a heavy blow. Hamas is also claiming victory. Are there any winners in this conflict?
Thank you for having me. Yes and no. Hamas, in a way, did come out a winner, because even though it certainly didn't militarily defeat Israel, and that's far beyond its capacity, it is now recognized as the one force in Palestinian society that stood up against Israel. The Palestinian Authority wasn't doing that when Israel was attempting to ethnically cleanse the Jerusalem neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah. It didn't do that when Israel was impeding Palestinian access to Al-Aqsa Mosque. Only Hamas has responded. That doesn't mean to say that their response has been a particularly good one, but they did come out ahead here.
And when Israel says that it's dealt Hamas a heavy blow, is that something that you believe, that you get on board with?
Of course, they did deal Hamas a heavy blow. I mean, they rained bombs on the Gaza Strip for 11 days and killed a number of Hamas leaders and destroyed a number of Hamas military facilities. Does that mean that they have ended the story? No, absolutely not. Hamas will rebuild itself, and absent a broader political resolution of the conflict, we can expect a similar outbreak in Gaza in the coming years.
Now, of course, a new aspect to this latest conflict was the violence that spilled over into Israel's ethnically mixed towns and cities. Were you in any way surprised to see that going on?
I was surprised, not because there had been such a wonderful history of coexistence between Palestinian Israelis and Jewish Israelis. In some places there was, in some places there was not. In the city of Lydda, which experienced perhaps the most violent confrontations, actually relations had not been particularly good, because a group of settlers, Jewish settlers, came to the city to extend the Jewish presence there. Nonetheless, there hasn't been this kind of violence, inter-ethnic violence in Israeli mixed cities, I think not since the establishment of the State of Israel. And what this signifies is actually something quite important, which is that Palestinian citizens of Israel, some of them at least, a significant number of them, have begun to identify with the struggles of the people of the Gaza Strip and of East Jerusalem and of the West Bank. And that means that for the first time in many, many, many years, the Palestinian people are a united body once again.
And how much, in your opinion, is that linked to the Israeli government in recent years slowly inching towards the right?
It does have something to do with it. In 2018, the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, passed what's called the nation-state law, proclaiming that Israel is the nation-state of the Jewish people. That's a message to the 20% of Israel's citizens who are Palestinian Arabs that it's not their state. Well, if the majority tells the minority, this is not your state, it's only the arrogance of the powerful that would prevent you from seeing that there's going to be a reaction of some sort against that.
Now, there has, from the US, also a number of countries, but a lot of talk about the end of this latest conflict being a real opportunity for peace. Do you think there's any political will on either side for that to start again, that process?
I think a lot of what's talked about when we're talking about peace process is simply propaganda points. The government of Israel, since Benjamin Netanyahu became prime minister in 2009, is dead set against a Palestinian state. The Palestinian Authority is weak, corrupt, does not have the respect of a majority of the people over whom it has some authority. Hamas, despite the political victory that it has achieved in the recent fighting, is authoritarian and corrupt and isn't in a position to lead the Palestinian people. So we are in a state where Israel has established a single state apartheid reality between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. Any talk of peace or progress towards peace that doesn't begin from recognizing that reality will go nowhere.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is set to arrive in Israel sometime this week, possibly Wednesday, we think. What, if anything, concrete should we expect from that visit then?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He will talk about a two-state solution because that is the official position of the United States. He will say many good words about the United States defending supporting Israel's right to defend itself. He will repeat all the platitudes that we have heard for more than a generation now, and nothing will happen.
US President Joe Biden has come in for a lot of criticism in recent days for his reluctance to strongly condemn Israel's actions in Gaza, often from within the more liberal elements of his own party. Do you think we're witnessing a shift in the way that the US sees Israel, its historic ally?
Yes and no. There is definitely a shift in the left wing of the Democratic Party, the progressive wing that is identified with Senator Bernie Sanders and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Representative Rashida Tlaib and others. And the base of the Democratic Party has shifted along with them, a large part of it at any rate, and especially younger people. On the other hand, the people in the leadership of the Democratic Party, President Biden himself first and foremost, but also Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer, they have not changed their view of Israel one iota, nor do I expect that they will. And of course, the Republican Party is lockstep behind the most retrograde elements in Israeli politics. So there is movement at the base. That movement, if it consolidates and manages to strengthen itself, will probably be expressed in increasing criticism of Israel in Congress. It's not strong enough yet to make a difference at the level of presidential policymaking.
Joel Beinin, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. Joel Beinin, Professor of History and Middle East History at Stanford University. Thank you.